Ethan Cole had everything money could buy. A glass house on a hill, 5 cars in the garage, a company worth billions. But the house was always quiet. Too quiet. He was only 32 years old, but he felt much older. His parents had died in a car crash when he was 25. His wife had left him 2 years ago, saying he worked too much and loved too little. There were no children. No laughter in the hallways. Just silence and the soft hum of his phone buzzing with emails. Ethan ran a company called Coleview Technologies. It made software that other big companies used. He was smart, sharp, and tired. Every day looked the same. Wake up. Work. Meetings. More work. Sleep if he could. His housekeeper, Maria, had worked for him for 3 years. She was kind, quiet, and always smiled even when she looked exhausted. Ethan never asked about her life. He paid her well and assumed that was enough. One rainy Tuesday evening, Ethan came home early, which never happened. He walked into the kitchen and stopped. There, sitting on the floor near the pantry, was a little girl. She had curly brown hair, big brown eyes, and a stuffed rabbit clutched in her small arms. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, surprised. Maria came rushing in from the laundry room, her face pale. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry. This is my daughter, Lily. My babysitter canceled today, and I had no one else. I should have told you. Please don't be upset." Ethan looked at the little girl. She looked up at him with no fear at all, just curiosity. "Hi," she said softly. Ethan didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to children. He wasn't used to anyone, really. "It's fine," he said stiffly. "Just keep her out of my office." Maria nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. "Thank you, sir. She's very quiet. She won't bother you." But that night, something strange happened. Ethan was sitting alone in his big living room, staring at his laptop screen, not really reading anything. The rain tapped against the windows. He felt the same heavy feeling he always felt at night, like the house was too big and his life was too empty. Then he heard small footsteps. Lily walked into the room, dragging her stuffed rabbit behind her. She looked at Ethan with her wide brown eyes, then walked over and sat down on the rug, right next to his feet. "Sweetie, you shouldn't be in here," Ethan said, trying to sound firm, though his voice came out softer than he meant it to. Lily just looked up at him. "You look sad," she said. Ethan blinked. No one had said that to him in years, not even people who actually knew him. "I'm not sad," he said quickly. "I'm just busy." Lily tilted her head, like she didn't believe him one bit. 3-year-olds have a way of seeing right through grown-up excuses. She scooted a little closer and patted the rug beside her, like she was inviting him to sit on the floor too. "It's okay," she said. "Don't be sad. I'll sit with you." Ethan felt something strange tighten in his chest. It wasn't pain exactly. It was something he hadn't felt in a long time, like a small crack opening in a wall he had built around himself. He didn't know why, but he found himself sliding down from the couch and sitting on the floor beside her. The carpet was soft. Lily smiled, satisfied, like she had done an important job, and leaned her head against his arm. "There," she said. "Now you're not alone." For the first time in years, Ethan didn't say anything about work. He didn't check his phone. He just sat there, on the floor of his enormous, empty house, with a 3-year-old leaning against his arm, and for a few minutes, the silence didn't feel so heavy. Maria found them like that 10 minutes later. Her boss, the billionaire who barely smiled, sitting on the floor with her daughter asleep against his arm. "I am so sorry, Mr. Cole," Maria whispered, rushing to pick Lily up. "She must have wandered in. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again." Ethan looked down at the spot where Lily had been sitting, then back up at Maria. "It's fine," he said. And then, surprising even himself, he added, "She can come in any time." Maria blinked in surprise. "Are you sure, sir?" Ethan nodded slowly. He wasn't sure of much in his life, but somehow he was sure of that. That night, after Maria carried Lily home to their small apartment above the garage, Ethan sat alone again in his big living room. But something felt different. The silence wasn't gone, but it didn't feel quite as cold. He thought about Lily's words. "Don't be sad. I'll sit with you." Such simple words. Yet no one, Not his business partners, not his ex-wife, not even his own parents while they were alive, had ever said something so simple and so kind to him. He looked around his giant house, with its expensive art and empty rooms, and for the first time, he wondered if he had been measuring his life all wrong. After that rainy night, something shifted. Ethan didn't go back to ignoring the world around him. He started coming home earlier. He told himself it was because of a project deadline, but really, some small part of him was hoping to see a flash of curly brown hair in the hallway. Maria was nervous about it at first. "Mr. Cole, I promise I'll keep Lily out of your way," she said one morning, watching him pour his coffee. "You don't have to," Ethan said. "I don't mind her being around." Maria studied his face, like she was trying to understand this new version of her boss. "She really likes you," she said carefully. "She talks about you. She calls you the sad man." Ethan almost laughed. "The sad man?" "She means it kindly," Maria said quickly, worried she'd offended him. She notices things. Even at 3, she notices when someone's hurting." Ethan thought about that for a long moment. "She's right," he admitted quietly. "I have been sad. For a long time." It was the most honest thing he'd said to anyone in years. Over the next few weeks, little visits became a habit. Lily would toddle into whatever room Ethan was in, his office, the kitchen, the living room, and simply sit near him. Sometimes she colored pictures on the floor while he worked. Sometimes she hummed little songs that didn't have any real words. Sometimes she just looked at him with those big brown eyes, like she was checking to make sure he was okay. One afternoon, Ethan was sitting at his desk, frustrated over a deal that had fallen through. His phone kept buzzing with angry messages from investors. He rubbed his temples, feeling the old, familiar tightness in his chest. Lily wandered in, holding a drawing. "I made this for you," she said, holding up a paper covered in scribbles of yellow and orange. "What is it?" Ethan asked, trying to sound interested even though his mind was elsewhere. "It's the sun," Lily said proudly. "Because you need more sun. You're inside too much." Ethan stared at the drawing. It was nothing special, just a child's messy scribbles. But he found himself smiling, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "Thank you," he said, taking it gently. He pinned it to the wall beside his desk, right next to a framed photo of his last big business deal. Somehow, the drawing of the sun looked more important than the photo. From then on, every time Lily made something, a drawing, a paper flower, a clumsy braid of yarn, Ethan kept it. His office wall, once covered only in awards and certificates, slowly began to fill with a toddler's art. His assistant, a sharp woman named Denise, noticed the change in him too. "You've been different lately," she said one day, looking at him curiously. "Less angry in meetings." "Have I?" Ethan asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yeah," Denise said. "What changed?" Ethan thought about Lily's small hand patting the rug beside her, inviting him to sit. He thought about her drawing of the sun. He thought about the words she'd said that rainy night. "Someone reminded me that I don't have to carry everything alone," he said simply. Denise raised an eyebrow, but didn't push further. One evening, Lily came running into the living room, tears streaming down her little face. She had fallen while playing outside and scraped her knee. Maria was busy on a phone call in another room, so Lily ran straight to Ethan, who was sitting on the couch reviewing documents. "It hurts," she sobbed, climbing up onto the couch beside him. Ethan felt a jolt of panic. He had no idea how to take care of a crying child. But instinct took over. He gently pulled her onto his lap and looked at her scraped knee. "It's just a little scratch," he said softly. "You're going to be okay." Lily sniffled, looking up at him with watery eyes. "Will you sit with me? Like I sat with you?" Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Yes," he said. "I'll sit with you." He held her gently until her crying slowed, until her small body relaxed against his chest, until she finally fell asleep, exhausted from her tears. Ethan sat there for a long time, not moving, afraid to disturb her peaceful breathing. He thought about how strange life was. He had built a billion-dollar company. He had shaken hands with presidents and CEOs. He had everything that the world said mattered. But none of that had ever made him feel as needed, as important as holding this little girl while she slept. When Maria came to find them, she stopped in the doorway, her hand over her mouth. Ethan looked up at her, holding her sleeping daughter, and for the first time, Maria saw something different in his eyes. Not the tired, cold businessman she usually saw. Something warmer. Something healing. "She really has changed you," Maria whispered. Ethan looked down at Lily's peaceful face. "She saved me," he said quietly. "I just didn't know I needed saving." Months passed, and Lily became a regular part of Ethan's life. She had her own little corner in his office with crayons and a small table. She called him Mr. E, because his real name was too hard for her to say. Ethan found himself looking forward to the sound of her tiny feet running down the hallway. But not everything was simple. One evening, Maria looked unusually tired and worried as she tucked Lily in for a nap on the couch in the staff room. Ethan noticed her hands shaking slightly as she folded a blanket. "Maria, is everything all right?" he asked. Maria hesitated, then shook her head. "It's nothing, Mr. Cole. Just money troubles. It's not your concern." "Tell me," Ethan said, more gently than he meant to. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Lily's father left when she was a baby. It's just been me and her. My rent went up, and I might have to take a second job. I might have to find someone else to watch her at night, and I don't know who I trust enough." She wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't burden you with this." Ethan sat quietly for a moment. He thought about Lily's drawing of the sun. He thought about her scraped knee, her tiny hand patting the rug, her soft voice saying, "Don't be sad. I'll sit with you." "You don't have to find anyone else," Ethan said. "Lily can stay here, in the house, after work hours too. There's plenty of room. And I'll raise your pay, not because I feel sorry for you, but because you and your daughter deserve better." Maria stared at him, stunned. "Mr. Cole, I can't accept." "You can," Ethan said firmly but kindly. "Lily gave me something I didn't even know I was missing. Let me give something back." Maria broke down crying, thanking him over and over, while Lily slept peacefully nearby, unaware of the kindness being arranged around her. But not long after, trouble arrived in a different form. Ethan's company was facing a hostile takeover. A rival businessman named Richard Hain had been buying shares secretly, trying to seize control of Coleview Technologies. The stress hit Ethan hard. He spent days locked in his office, barely eating, barely sleeping, drowning in calls with lawyers and board members. One night, after a brutal meeting that left him shaken, Ethan sat alone in his office, head in his hands. He had built this company from nothing after his parents died. Losing it felt like losing them all over again. The office door creaked open. Lily peeked in, holding her stuffed rabbit. "Mr. E," she said softly. "Maria said you're having a bad day." Ethan looked up, his eyes red from exhaustion. "Yeah, sweetheart. A really bad day." Lily walked over and climbed onto the chair beside him, the way she always did. She didn't ask what was wrong. She didn't try to fix it. She simply sat there, leaning her small head against his arm. "Don't be sad," she whispered. "I'll sit with you." Ethan felt tears burn in his eyes, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. He wrapped his arm gently around her and let himself simply sit in the moment, the storm in his business world fading into the background. "You know," he said quietly, "you've taught me more than any business class ever did." Lily looked up at him, confused but happy. "What did I teach you?" Ethan smiled softly. "That sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fighting. It's just being there for someone." The next morning, Ethan walked into the boardroom with new clarity. He didn't fight Richard Hain with anger or fear. He fought with calm, careful strategy, the same patience Lily had shown him on the office floor. He reminded his investors why they had trusted him in the first place, not because he was ruthless, but because he built things that lasted, things that mattered. In the end, the takeover failed. Ethan kept his company. But more importantly, he kept something else, a new understanding of what truly mattered in his life. That evening, when he came home, Lily ran to greet him at the door, as she always did now. "Did you win, Mr. E?" Ethan picked her up, swinging her gently. Yeah, sweetheart. I think I did. But what he didn't say was that the real victory wasn't the company at all. It was learning, after years of being alone, what it truly meant to have someone, even someone so small, choose to sit beside him through the storm. As the months passed, Ethan's house slowly stopped feeling like a cold, empty mansion. It started feeling like a home. Lily's drawings covered the walls. Her toys were scattered across the living room floor. Maria's laughter echoed through the kitchen as she cooked dinner, no longer just as staff, but as someone Ethan genuinely cared for. And every evening, without fail, Lily would run to greet him at the door, shouting, "Mr. E is home." But there was something Ethan hadn't told anyone yet, something that had been growing quietly in his heart for weeks. He loved them, both of them. Maria's gentle strength and quiet kindness had slowly become something he looked forward to every single day. And Lily had become the daughter he never knew he needed. One evening, after Lily had fallen asleep on the couch with cartoons still playing softly, Ethan sat in the kitchen with Maria, sharing tea. "Maria," he said carefully, "I need to tell you something, and I hope it doesn't make things complicated." Maria looked up, curious. "What is it, Mr. Cole?" "Please," he said gently, "call me Ethan. At least when Lily isn't around." Maria smiled softly. "Okay, Ethan." He took a deep breath. "These past months, you and Lily have changed my life. I used to think success meant money, power, control. But Lily taught me that the real things that matter are so much simpler. And you've shown me a kindness and strength I haven't seen in anyone in years." Maria's eyes glistened, sensing where this was going. "I care about you, Maria. Not just as someone who works for me. As a person. As someone I'd like to build a future with, if you'll let me." Maria was quiet for a long moment, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Ethan, I've been scared to even hope for something like this. I didn't want to ruin what you and Lily have." "You won't ruin anything," Ethan said, taking her hand. "You're part of it." That night marked the beginning of something new, not sudden or dramatic, but slow and real, built on small moments of trust and shared laughter, the same way Lily had slowly rebuilt the broken pieces of Ethan's heart. A few weeks later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Ethan sat on the back porch with Lily, watching the sunrise. She was drawing again, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration. "Mr. E," she said suddenly, "are you going to be my daddy now?" Ethan's heart nearly stopped. He hadn't expected such a direct question from a 3-year-old. "Would you like that?" he asked carefully. Lily nodded eagerly. "You're already like my daddy. You sit with me. You make the sad feelings go away." Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. He gently pulled her into a hug. "Then yes, sweetheart. I would be honored to be your daddy." When Maria found them like that, Ethan holding Lily tightly, both of them smiling through happy tears, she didn't need to ask what happened. She already knew. 6 months later, Ethan and Maria were married in a small, simple ceremony in the backyard of the house that was no longer just a mansion, but truly a home. Lily, dressed in a tiny white dress, proudly carried a basket of flowers down the aisle, beaming with pride. During the small reception, Ethan stood to give a short speech. He looked at the small crowd of close friends and family, then down at Lily, who sat happily on a chair beside her mother, swinging her little feet. "I used to think I had everything," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Money, success, power. But I was the loneliest man in the world." Then one rainy night, a 3-year-old girl sat beside me on the floor and told me, "Don't be sad, I'll sit with you." Those 5 words changed my entire life. They taught me that love isn't about grand gestures or big achievements. It's about simply showing up for someone again and again, even in the smallest ways. He looked at Maria, then at Lily. "Today, I'm the richest man in the world, not because of my company, but because of this family." The small crowd wiped away tears, touched deeply by his words. Lily, not fully understanding the speech but sensing the love in the room, ran over and hugged Ethan's leg tightly. "I love you, Daddy," she said simply. Ethan knelt down and hugged her back. I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything in this world. Years passed. Lily grew from a tiny toddler into a bright, kind-hearted young girl. The house that once echoed with silence and sadness was now filled with laughter, music, and the comforting chaos of family life. Ethan still ran his company, but he no longer let it consume him. He learned to balance success with the things that truly mattered: bedtime stories, school plays, family dinners, and quiet moments on the porch swing with Maria after Lily had gone to sleep. One evening, when Lily was 7 years old, she came home from school upset. She had failed a small spelling test and was embarrassed in front of her classmates. She sat on the porch steps, hugging her knees, refusing to talk to anyone. Ethan, sensing her sadness from the kitchen window, walked outside and sat down beside her, just like she once had with him. "Rough day?" he asked gently. Lily nodded, eyes filled with unshed tears. "Everyone laughed at me. I feel so dumb." Ethan put his arm around her. "You know, when I was your age, I struggled in school too. I used to think being smart meant being perfect, but really, being smart means trying again after you fail." Lily looked up at him. "Were you ever really sad, Daddy? Like really, really sad?" Ethan smiled softly, memories flooding back to that rainy night so many years ago. "I was. The saddest I've ever been. Until a very brave little girl sat beside me and told me everything would be okay." Lily's eyes widened in realization. "Was that me?" Ethan nodded, his eyes glistening. "Yes, baby. It was you. You saved me, Lily. Just by sitting beside me." Lily smiled, the sadness from her day slowly fading away. She leaned her head against her father's shoulder. "Then I guess it's my turn to sit with you again." Ethan chuckled softly, pulling her closer. "Looks like it." They sat together quietly on the porch as the sun began to set, the sky painted in soft orange and pink, the very colors Lily had once drawn for him all those years ago, in a desperate attempt to bring a little sunshine into his dark world. Later that evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Maria watched Ethan and Lily laughing together at the table, sharing inside jokes and stories from their day. She felt overwhelming gratitude for how far they had all come, from a struggling single mother and her quiet, lonely employer, to a real family bound by genuine love. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing her parents a new drawing she'd made at school. It was a picture of their family, Ethan, Maria, and herself, standing together under a bright, smiling sun. "This is us," Lily announced proudly. "Because we're never sad anymore. Not really sad. Because we always have each other." Ethan pinned the drawing carefully on the refrigerator, right beside dozens of others Lily had made over the years. He stepped back, looking at the colorful collection of childhood memories that decorated his once empty, lonely home. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Ethan stood quietly in her doorway, watching her sleep peacefully, clutching the same worn stuffed rabbit she'd held the very first night they met. He thought about how a single, simple sentence from a 3-year-old had completely transformed his life. "Don't be sad. I'll sit with you." It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't wealth or success or fame. It was simple, genuine kindness, the kind that healed wounds money could never fix. Ethan quietly closed her bedroom door and walked down the hallway, past the photographs of laughter, drawings of love, and memories of healing. He stepped onto the porch, where Maria waited with 2 cups of tea, the stars twinkling softly above them. "Penny for your thoughts?" Maria asked, handing him a warm cup. Ethan smiled, sitting beside his wife under the quiet night sky. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," he said softly. "I used to think being a billionaire meant I had everything. But real richness, it's having someone to sit beside you through every storm and every quiet evening." Maria smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "We're lucky too, Ethan. All because a little girl saw a sad man and chose kindness over silence." Together, they sat quietly under the stars, hearts full, finally complete, not because of wealth or success, but because of the simple, powerful love a tiny child had once offered a lonely billionaire on a rainy, ordinary night. And from that night forward, no matter what storms life brought their way, they always remembered this simple truth. Sometimes, the smallest voices carry the greatest comfort, and sometimes, all someone truly needs is for another person to gently say, "Don't be sad. I'll sit with you."